Before I begin this true story, my friends, I have to warn you. It does get extremely graphic in its imagery at some points. This is about a situation involving a woman who has passed away, and I included the details because there are people who really have to deal with these kinds of things. If you don't want to be grossed out, please take this moment to go ahead and listen to another video. You've been warned. Dear Mr. X, during one of your live stream events, you asked me to tell you a story. I'd like to keep my real name a secret, so please, call me Dorian. The subject matter I'm about to discuss is of a very sensitive nature, as I work mostly with unnatural death. I've dealt with thousands of cases over the years. I'm one of the people who bag and remove human bodies and remains from crime scenes and other locations where people have died. I told you I have lots of stories, but I'll just start with one. Unfortunately, the stories I share with you will always be 100% true. This one is not the nastiest or craziest I've ever encountered, but it was disturbing enough to stick with me over the past year. I think about it pretty often. Last summer, I got called out of my already busy schedule to collect the remains of a dead lady in a small trailer park. The home was out in the desert, extremely rural and sparsely populated. It was nearly 100 degrees when I arrived. As I pulled up to the scene, I could see the police officers and some likely family members standing outside in the sun. That sight alone was enough to assure me that something horrendous was awaiting me inside. Something no one else was willing to even be near. As I got out of my vehicle, I forced the most solemn expression I could manage, walking past the bystanders without a single word. One of the cops followed, letting me through the back gate to show me where the deceased could be found. The first thing I noticed was that there was junk everywhere, piles and stacks of garbage, odds and ends. Butted up against the front windows, I could see cheap plastic bins full to bursting. Newspapers, chairs, and all kinds of things packed in together formed solid walls and pillars. This individual was a certified hoarder. The officer filled me in on some of the details as we walked around back. The lady was approximately 60 years old. I don't know how long she lived in the trailer, but it was long enough for her to completely fill it with mountains of trash. It was so full that she could no longer live inside, and had been living out on her back patio for a long time. Even that, her tiny living space, was eventually inundated with haphazardly stacked garbage that towered almost to the tin roof of the mobile home. The story was that one night, she was walking around one of her many junk piles, naked for some reason, and one of them shifted and collapsed on top of her. She was pinned underneath a pile of trash, unable to free herself, but she wasn't seriously injured. Now, she did have an adult son and daughter who came and checked on her just about every day, but this is where the story gets truly messed up. When they found her, naked, half buried and pinned under the mass of garbage, for some reason they never tried to dig their mother out. They never called 911. They were even perfectly capable of moving the trash little by little and getting her out of there. But yet there I was, getting ready to remove her body from its unsettling resting place. What the hell happened here? Suddenly, the smell hit me. A full-on assault on my senses caused my eyes to water a bit as I drew nearer to her location. I could hear a distant but heavy buzzing coming from the collapsed wall of garbage on the patio. This poor woman's wispy, frail arms were somewhat outstretched. Countless flies crusted the area immediately around her waist, receding into the trash pile. She looked sick, pale. Her face was pressed down into the floor in a way no conscious person could tolerate. I grabbed onto her hands and gave a slight pull to see if I'd be able to get her out. To my surprise, her body slid out with ease, exposing a million new flies and sending a second, even more devastating wave of pungent odor into the air. The flies were so thick that I had to concentrate on keeping my mouth shut, even with my light particle mask on, for fear of one getting into my mouth. When the flies cleared, I could see that the reason she came out so easily was that the entire lower half of her body was smeared with a mixture of feces and fly larvae. I maneuvered her body up onto my gurney when her legs fell open, causing a writhing mass of maggots to roll out from between her thighs that made me take a step back, almost losing my grip on her. I could see that there were multiple generations of maggots living on and inside her genital area. That was when I realized that there were absolutely no signs of injury or decomposition that could be seen on her body, leaving me to speculate on how she actually died. She certainly appeared to be sick, but I could also tell that she only just recently passed. Another one of the cops finally told me the rest of the poor woman's story. For some reason, rather than get help for their mother, her children decided to just come over every day and bring her food and water. They did this for 6 god-awful months, before she finally passed away and they called the police to report the death. The cause of death wasn't suffocation, dehydration, or injury, but infection. I'm sure I don't have to spell out why that was the case. Even though it's been over a year, I still find myself wondering how someone could do such a thing to their own mother. I wonder if they even understood that what they were doing was killing her. I can't imagine the feeling of being pinned down for months, covered in my own waste, as thousands of tiny parasites slowly eat their way into my body. It is a true example of a living nightmare. I want to thank you for listening to my story, Mr. X. Please feel free to call me if you have any questions or need me to elaborate on anything. Like I said, there are 1,000 more stories where that came from. Sincerely, Dorian. Greetings, friends. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and leave me a comment down below to let me know. So how about it? How do you guys feel about hearing some more stories from our friend Dorian? This subject matter is extremely haunting to me because this profession is something that thousands of people do every day, and I'm sure normally it's a very thankless job. But to you, my friend, I want to say thank you for what you do. It's a vitally important profession in this world, and not many people can handle such things. I know this story was the first of its kind here on my channel, and a bit of a departure from the norm, but that's definitely something I like to do every so often to see what you guys like or dislike. Sometimes I like to get a little ironic with my pseudonyms that I assign to the great people who let me in on the details of their lives. It makes things a bit more interesting. With this young man, since he didn't want his true name revealed, I chose to give him the name Dorian, as, number one, a bit of a shout out to my frequent co-conspirator Nix, known here on YouTube as Penny Dreadful Moment, and also because the character of Dorian Gray is an immortal. I found that name choice to be somewhat of interest to this subject matter, and I guess it's kind of morbidly amusing that someone with such a name would be tending to the dead on a daily basis. And I say that, of course, with all due respect to the departed. This is going to be kind of a complicated subject to cover on this channel because I don't want to disrespect the dead in any way. Anyway, this young man I call Dorian has assured me that he's willing to be something of a regular source of bizarre scenes of real-world human tragedy. The fates of so many cross his path every day, and I thought it would be fascinating for us to take an occasional look at that little pocket of existence. I do so, like I said, with great respect for the deceased and their families, so I will try my best not to include any information that could easily tie a story to the actual people involved. And before I go, I wanted to take a moment to thank you, truly, from the bottom of my heart for listening. And a very special thanks goes out to those intrepid souls among you who share their fascinating lives with me, so that I have the information I need to write these stories and share them with our world. Thank you all. And by the way, my friends, thanks for putting up with my lack of an upload last week. I really enjoyed having the little holiday break. I know I've been a bit long-winded in this outro, and that only my ride-or-die listeners are still with me. If you're hearing this, I love you most of all. If you are here, Please let me know by using the word gnarly in your comment. Until next time, my friends, I'm Mr. X, and may your nights be full of dreams.